Today I'm going to work on the Galaxie some more. I worked on it all day yesterday, but I got very little accomplished. Yesterday was one fiasco right after another, and I'll put some of the video of the fiascos in. And I had problems with hydraulic brake lines, with getting the wheel bearings off the axle shafts. I worked on the car. Yesterday was Sunday, and I came out here at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was out here until 7 o'clock in the evening. And the only thing I got accomplished was the brake line from the front up here, you know, where it attaches. And you'll see it in the video. I'll put it in the video. But I got the line where it attaches here, down the frame to the rear axle. And that was all I got done the whole day. Oh, and I cleaned these up. But the lines that go on the axles turned into a dilemma. So these are the lines that Inline Tubing sent me. And right away I didn't think they were right. And because I was matching things up to the original lines that were off the car, and I saved the original rear axle lines. I saved all of. I still have what's left of the exhaust system. I even saved that. But anyway, I wanted to put them on, and there was no way these hydraulic lines were going to fit. So I dug out the old lines, held them up, nothing like it, and I had contacted Inline Tubing a while back when I first got them, and they said take some pictures and send them to their support, and they gave me the email, and I did, with the old lines. Never heard anything from them. Not a reply in an email, phone call, nothing. So I called them, I don't know, maybe a week later. They told me the same thing again, take photos and send them to them. I told them I did. And so I did it again. Another couple weeks went by, I heard nothing. I was at the swap meet with Dave Robertson and Novi, and I talked to one of they had an inline tube thing set up, and I talked to the guy there, and he said, check my spam folder. So I did, nothing there. So yesterday I went to put these lines on the car, and they didn't fit. And I was just fit to be tied, not because they didn't fit the car, not because I couldn't get the axle bearings off, not because things didn't go right, but because I was blown off over these. That infuriates me when I get blown off by people. And so anyway, I gathered everything up. I gathered these up, the old original lines, and I went there today with with probably not the best attitude I should have had. But anyway, I went there and I walked in the door and I showed him the old lines and the new lines. And here's the old lines with new lines. He was telling me, oh, it'll be a week before we can have it done. And I'm like, no, I ordered these in advance so I'd have them when I needed them. I've sent photos of those with these lines several times, never got any replies or any responses. You're going to take whoever off what they're doing now and you're going to make them right now. And he's like, well, we can't do that. I says, yes, you can. And so I was persistent, so they did. So here we go. Apparently this car has a 65 design. Ford changed the design of their brake line layout, and they used this for their hose that goes on the axle. I had to grind that to get the little bracket off because the new one, its bracket screws to this. So, and I got that from Custom Crafters, the hose. And apparently they changed it to where they relocated this in a different spot on the axle, and then these lines. This one's like a foot too long and this one's a foot too short. So that during the production year 66, they changed where they mount this and change this component altogether to where instead of like that, they come straight out the sides. So they went and took my old lines to the back and found they matched the 65 pattern perfectly. And they bent up the lines to that pattern. So these lines should work. That's why I always save everything when I restore a car until I'm done. Every single component that I replace on this car, I still have everything. And I do that because things like this. You run into fiascos, and then you think, oh, I wished I'd kept that. I could have used that to make, I could use these old lines if I had to bend them up myself to make new lines. So I always save everything until I'm done. When the car's done, going down the road, no issues, then I'll go through and sort through and discard some things, may keep other things, but I keep everything while the car's under restoration. I've learned that probably 30 years ago, to just save everything until you're done with your project. So I got the correct lines, so hopefully I can get these on, the backing plates on, the axles in, and the brakes on. And I'll show you the fiasco with the axles now that I'm done ranting over the fiasco with the hydraulic lines. They did take care of me. I have to say, they were really nice to me and took care of me. So I'm going to give them credit for that. The lines, the rest of the lines on the car fit like a glove. Super happy with them. And I think these ones will fit like a glove. I do have to take this bracket off and clean it. And looked like it was a green color originally. So anyway, I'm going to clean it all up, paint the little bracket, and get these maybe today or tomorrow. I want to get the axle bearings off, and I'll continue the video with some of the fiascos, and so you'll just kind of see. These cars aren't always, everything's works out just Jim dandy. You do have issues with them. That's part of restoring a car, is the issues and solving the issues. But thankfully, I'm one of those old school save everything until you're done type of guys. I try not and rip things apart. I try and take things apart properly. I try not and break fittings, like these are still on the original lines. I do that because you never know when you need to make up a line or make up something for anything. So always save your old components. Let me show you the axles. So you'll see when you get into the video, you just take an air chisel and put a slice down that, and that spreads these out enough to where these just push right off with an air chisel without an issue. The bearings, usually you can get in there and just hit your air chisel and push the bearing right off. Sometimes you got to work one side, the other side, one back and forth. I bet you I worked on this for a good 2 hours, and that's as far as I got the bearing. Now it only needs to come to there, and then it should come off. There's like a little step there because the seal rides right. You can see where the seal rides right there, and then this would be up here probably because I got the bearing pushed off a little bit. But that's as far as I can get that bearing. I can't get it to budge another fraction of an inch. I've destroyed my chisel tip. I reground it several times, to the point towards I'm just going to have to buy another one. I'll regrind it and use it still, but I'll get another one too. But I'm just going to take the plasma cutter and I'll cut this and knock the bearing apart, and then I'll cut the race that's pressed onto here, not down to this. I'll cut it like maybe 3/4 of the way through, and that should be enough to where I can hit it with this once really quick and crack it, and then it'll come right off. I'm gonna drag the plasma cutter out and get those bearings off first, and then I'm gonna start putting those hydraulic lines on, and I'll do a little video of bleeding the brakes and doing all that kind of stuff, and hopefully in the next couple of days I can be starting to put the exhaust on, rebuild the carburetor, and get this thing going. My goal yesterday was to have the brakes on and bled and the axles in, and today was supposed to be working on the exhaust and tomorrow the carburetor, but obviously things change, and who knows, the exhaust, that's all in this box. Who knows how much of that's going to actually not fit. I hope it all fits, but you know how it is. good sized ball bearings in there. These bearings I don't think were bad, but I am replacing them. This I'm going to try not and cut through to the shaft, so I'm going to be very careful. I think that's enough. I'm going to hit that with a hammer and chisel and see what happens. Let me go get one. I did not cut, these are my plasma cutter shades. I did not cut all the way through, so I may have to cut the other side too. Alright, that's how you get them off the plasma cutter. I'll clean that all up nice and spiffy and clean this. This is what holds the axle shaft in the car. So I'll give this a bead blast and a paint job. And I got new gaskets. I'm waiting on the seals. I got a set of seals for here, but they sent me the kind for the axle with the bearing that rides on the axle, different differential. I redressed my beat chisel for the air hammer. And I'm going to take that retainer off, and I'm just gonna plasma cut that bearing off too. I'm not even going to try and knock it off with the air chisel. That's how I usually do them. You know, usually an air chisel blasts them off pretty quick and easy. Don't want to touch that. I could probably touch it. It's probably, well, it's not going to turn with the cut, but it usually doesn't get things too terribly hot around it. That end's still 100% cold to the touch. I love this plasma cutter. My dad got it for me, I don't know, probably 5-6 years ago. We bought it at a local welding supply. It was used. It was a trade-in. Somebody they bought it new and used it a few times and never really used it, and so they traded it in on a welder or something. So anyway, yeah, my dad picked it up. Really, like less than half what they cost new. I guess I didn't cut the cage, the bearing cage. We'll take care of that. Maybe I need to cut the bearing cage elsewhere. There we go. This sure beats hammering it with the air chisel. Let's see if that's enough to split it. I might need to cut it a little bit more there. I really didn't cut it much there. I don't want to go through it. There we go. Alright, I'm going to throw these in the blast cabinet and give them a paint job before I put any new bearings on. So I turned the lights off in the garage so I can see in my cabinet better. I really need a better light in there. It's got a fluorescent tube up here in the top. And I really need to put like some nice bright LED up here and down here so I get really good light. So that might be a future thing, is to put better lighting in it. That's my only complaint with this cabinet, is it's a Clark abrasive cabinet. It says it's model number SB9007. But I put new film, as you saw in the video, new film in here and cleaned the drywall dust collection bag in my shop vac, which is my dust collector. It works pretty good, and it's, you know, everyone tells me, oh, I'm going to go through shop vacs like candy. This one's probably 15 years old with this cabinet, and it still works fine. It's starting to get a little noisy, but when it, you know, when it goes out, I got another one, so I can put another one in there. So anyway, the air compressor isn't totally pumped up. It might come on right away, but let me get going here. My pliers from out of the trunk of the Galaxie, and I can hold parts off. Hopefully this shows up. Just cleans things up so nice and quick. I mean, look at that. Does it show up? I hope it does. I use pliers to hold stuff so my gloves don't get tore up from the media. See how much cleaner it is? Yeah, this thing's a lifesaver. If you restore cars, a blast cabinet is an absolute must. And obviously you need an air compressor if you're going to have a blast cabinet. A good sized air compressor. There we go, one cleaned up plate. Now I'll get the other one and we'll do that one. So you can see how life is made much easier with a media cabinet, blast cabinet. So that's kind of what they looked like before. And that's after. You just saw me do this one and how long it took. That was actual cleaning this up from start to finish. Back to the brake lines now. I'm routing these new stainless steel hydraulic lines. And I took the old one off in one piece so I wouldn't, so I'd know how to feed the new one through. Well, the only way I could get this thing in and out was lift the body off the chassis. So I undid, let me see if I can, I undid a body mount and put a jack on there where it's kind of ribbed so I wouldn't smash in the steel there, because that's always stronger where they're ribbed. And then lifted the body about a ½ inch or so and got the line through, so the line's all through. Now I can let the body down, tighten the body mount up, and finish putting the line on. I've been horsing around with this thing for probably an hour, and finally came to the conclusion, yeah, I gotta lift the body. There's no getting around it. These lines were put on at the factory before the body was put on the chassis, and these lines are made exactly to factory specifications. I got the line on. It took about 2.5 hours. It was a lot of fooling around, but it actually fits quite nice. I'm pretty impressed with the fit. Comes down through the frame all the way down the full length of the chassis. Up and around over there. I'll show you where it goes from there. It goes up and over there. There's the parking brake cable, and then it runs, I don't know if it shows up here or not, it runs up there and over to that. I don't know, maybe I guess I spoke too soon about inline tubing. Their tubings, I mean, that's junction blocks up in the middle top of the axle, right up there where you see me wiggling the line. That line's like a foot too long, doesn't even come close to fitting anything on the axle. This line is way too short, doesn't even come close. I mean, those things point out, oops, sorry. Those things point out the back, and then they run down the diff, hook in there, and go to the backing plates up there. And the same with that side. And this doesn't even, the longest one is too long for this side and doesn't even come close to fitting anything. And the same with this, that, you know, I mean, neither one of them, I horsed with them for 20 minutes and just got aggravated. And they have a support line, and the master cylinder line from the master down to the junction block didn't fit. So I sent some to their support and got zero response. They totally ignored me. I saw them at that swap meet I went to in Novi and talked to the guy. Oh, and he had all these excuses. Maybe it went into a spam folder or something. And I checked my spam folders, nothing in there. So they never replied. And so now I got to deal with these, and I'm not even going to waste my time with their support. There's nothing more aggravating when people don't, you know, when they ignore you, so to speak. And so I'm going to take these back to Inline Tubing tomorrow and see if they can make me up these lines tomorrow while I wait. And if they can't, I'll get a refund and make them myself. That's just the way it's going to be. I'm just don't have time to put up with people that are jerks and ignore, you know, like blow you off, like, you know, like as if my business isn't important to them. So anyway, I'm going to give them the chance to make it right, and I'll follow up and let you know. And looky what I picked up here. The headlights on this car were the original ones. They say Ford Motor Company in them, just like that. But the silvering on the back was all coming off, and they just didn't look good. So I ordered a set of new ones, and to buy just regular headlights, not much difference in cost than these reproductions of the originals. So that's what I went with. So I got all 4 headlights. And hopefully those will be better than those hydraulic lines. Those hydraulic lines just kind of aggravated me and kind of did the day. And so, I don't know, I was thinking I'd start working on changing the bearings on the axle shaft, but as frustrated as I am, I've just been bead blasting components for the brakes and stuff. Let's see if I can get this wheel bearing off here. That opens it up a little bit when you hit it in there like I was. I guess I'm going to have to hit this with the air chisel too. So I was getting ready to put the hydraulic lines on, so I took this little clip off so I could bead blast it to paint it. And if you look at it, there's no doubt in my mind this was originally a green. So I am going to paint it green. Alright, now we are cooking with gas. That is, I got to put that bracket on there, and I got to put them up underneath these little clips here, but I want to get the wheel cylinders hooked up so I can move these lines around. They're not even tight, they're just finger tight in here, so I can move them around to get everything hooked up, and I'll tighten everything up after everything's hooked up. But yeah, that's pretty good. You can see, I don't know if it shows up or not, but that is not in the center. This is where the drive shaft comes in, about even with the plug there, and then the spider gears are in here by where the ring gear is. That's why the one axle is longer than the other. So if you're wondering if that brake line's long enough, by far yes, because as you see, these backing plates, they go in quite a ways. There's a gasket that goes between the two, but see, that'll easily reach the wheel cylinder. And there's a gasket that I have one here handy. Yeah, there's a gasket that goes here between the backing plate and the axle, and then there's one that plate that holds the axle on and the backing plate. So there's a gasket on each side of the backing plate, and notice there's a little extra hole. Does it show up? Anyway, there is an extra hole there, and that's so that if you do have a gear oil leak, it runs down the backing plate on the outside and not in your brakes, and you can physically see the leak and repair it before it gets too bad. I did order new seals for here. That's the original seal. I haven't taken them out yet because I want to get the correct seals before I take them out. So they're just kind of waiting. As far as the rear end goes in this car, yeah, it is date coded April 66. It is the correct original rear end in the car. But apparently, like I say, Ford made a mid-model year change on their hydraulic braking system, so that's why, you know, if it's, I think it was, I don't know, he said it was like May or June, I don't remember now, but he told me they had a change. So make sure if you go get hydraulic lines, what your production date is, and see if it, you know, if it, well, you've seen the ones that are on the car. I showed them up here, and I showed these ones which are 66 and later, you know, like May or June of 66 and later. I'm going to call it a day here. Like I say, yesterday was a complete and total waste. It seemed like, anyway. I got some things done. You know, I did clean my blast cabinet and got that. I had to lift the body off the chassis to put that one brake line on, as you saw. So, you know, it was a bit of horsing around yesterday. I did get some things accomplished, but I feel much better today, even though I had to go all the way out to, I don't know, I guess it's, I don't know what that is. Shelby Township, maybe? Macomb? I don't know. I think it's Shelby Township. It's 23 mile in Hayes, kind of where the inline tube is. And then I went on up to my dad's in Romeo and was there for a few hours. And while I was there, I went to the local auto parts store I always deal with and picked up a 5-gallon can of my favorite cleaning fluid, lacquer thinner. Yeah, I use that. It was $16 a gallon, or $30 for a 5-gallon bucket or can. It was actually $34, I think. It just didn't make sense not to get it in the 5-gallon can for the amounts I use. And I'm going to be using that to thin the primer and whatnot when I get to working on the car here, you know, on the body, which hopefully will be soon. Hopefully this thing will be moving under its own power within the week, and then I can focus on the body, which I'm going to focus on the front clip and get those fenders stripped and primed and painted both sides. The hood primed and painted both sides, stripped it first, the cowl, the valance for the bumper, and then I can put the front end together so I have some room in the garage. And I only have a 24 by 28 garage here, so I don't have room to strew everything around. And so after I get that front clip assembly back on, maybe I'll pull the doors. Maybe I'll wait and do the quarters first. Get these all ready for primer. You know, get them, tear them, you know, fix this rust, fix that rust, you get the convertible top off, get all the rust fixed around wherever I need. Just fix everything on the quarters. The other side, I took this trim off, and the other side is as solid as a rock. A little bit of surface rust there, but nothing going through anywhere. That's all the original paint, completely solid. So the only thing I got is a little crease here. I gotta just bump this, and there's one in the door and a little bit in the fender, and I'll just bump them out. And so really the body work on this car is minimal, and it's mostly just stripping paint and sanding it out and priming, you know. And so I got to get all the surface rust off. That's got to be completely cleaned off. I don't want it to telegraph through new paint. And you know, like I say, when I get the convertible top, and there was one of these at S&S stripping being stripped I went and looked at, and there's a joint here that comes up here. I think it's leaded in. And then there's a C channel underneath here that the part of the convertible top goes in. And the way the moisture, it can get in there and just collect and hold dirt, and that's why these rust out here. Every car this era that I've seen that's not restored has issues. You know, I see a lot online where people have issues. Apparently this is the problem, some part on the body. That these boxes here are notorious to rust out. They're frame boxes, and the way Ford designed these frame boxes, from what I understand, was to smooth out the ride. So see how the frame rail is here, and then the frame rail is here, and there's a box here. And same in the front. The frame rail's inset, and then this frame rail's here. So they called this a torsion bar, so it can actually flex and move a little bit to smooth the ride out, so the chassis can flex a little bit on this car. And that's why Ford's always, in my mind, I don't know, I've always said you could blindfold me and put me in any car you want, and I could always tell you which one was a Ford, because Fords always have had a really good ride. And I've had numerous Fords. I've owned them all, and yeah, hands down, I think they have the best ride. I've been in, I had a new guy had a Rolls, and I think the Ford even rode better than the Rolls Royce. So there you go. That's my opinion. Well, now that I'm done rambling, I'm going to call it for sure day, and I want to thank everyone for watching my videos. If you like my video, hit the like button. It definitely helps, you know, get some more views, and it certainly helps. So hit the like button if you like the video. And if you want to see this car up and going again, subscribe to my channel. And again, thank you for watching my videos.